The biggest criminal trial in the history of the internet is over this morning.
Ross is an exceptional person. He's an Eagle Scout, scholarship student, scientist.
He is charged with running a continuing criminal enterprise.
20 years. I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity by that time.
You got the call, you know, Ross is in trouble, and what went through your mind?
In 2013, Kirk and Lynn Ulbricht received some bad news. They found out their son, Ross, was secretly a criminal and that he'd just been arrested.
It was like a bomb went off in the house. We had no idea that anything like that was coming.
They said Ross was peace-loving and compassionate. What crime did he commit?
It sounds like the plot of a movie. A U.S. man was able to hide behind a false identity, operating a sophisticated illegal drug website.
Ross created Silk Road, a website where people could buy and sell items like fake IDs, hacked passwords, and harmful substances.
Court documents say Silk Road sold $1.2 billion worth of and illegal services in just under 3 years.
But after Ross was arrested, everyone asked the same question. How on earth did this shy kid from Texas turn into a criminal kingpin who put hits on 6 people?
He was like one dude with a laptop that unleashed this thing that kind of metastasized and went over the whole world.
This is the insane story of how a former Boy Scout became a $1.2 billion drug lord. My name is Visual Venture. I hope you guys have an amazing day. The innocent Boy Scout. To understand Ross's transformation, we have to go back to his childhood. Born in 1984, Ross Ulbricht grew up in Austin, Texas, with his parents Kirk and Lynn and his sister Kala. Ross always got good grades, and those who personally knew him thought of him as a bright and smart kid. But while his performance in class was amazing, what he did outside of school was even more impressive.
He's an exceptional kid. He was an exceptional kid. He had qualities that are noble.
As a kid, Ross was a Boy Scout. The mission of the Boy Scouts is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes. To become a Boy Scout, Ross swore an oath to help others at all times and stay morally straight.
He cares about people. He's honest, trustworthy.
Ross was so good that he was promoted to Eagle Scout, a position given to Boy Scouts with the best character. Thanks to his good grades, Ross earned a scholarship to the University of Texas at Dallas and majored in physics. From there, he landed a graduate scholarship at Penn State for a master's in material science and engineering. Attending college is normally a good thing, but for Ross, it was the beginning of the end. Because something happened in college that erased his picture-perfect childhood and made Ross the most famous criminal in the short history of the internet. The big question is, what happened? The criminal was created. Ross's problems began when he was getting his master's at Penn State University in 2008. Back then, he worked as a research assistant and was even on track for a PhD scholarship. But everything went downhill when Ross got involved in campus discussions about freedom and liberty. The main idea was that everyone owns their body and life, so they should be free to choose how they live. In other words, as long as they're not hurting anyone, they can do whatever they want. Ross loved this concept.
Really, his was more of a libertarian viewpoint. I mean, it was like, you choose what you want to do for yourself and do it.
Unfortunately, Ross twisted this idea.
The crypto-anarchists have said, no, he's actually not a libertarian. He goes farther than the libertarians. He's more of an anarchist. He's more of a revolutionary.
Ross believed that everyone should be free to buy and sell whatever they want without the government saying certain products are bad or against the law. He believed if people wanted to consume substances, they should be able to without getting arrested.
You should put in your body what you want to put in your body.
In Ross's eyes, this was what it meant to be a free individual. That's when Ross decided to challenge the system and do something to help people make their own choices, however they individually saw fit. Well, that's what he thought he was doing. But his ideas would lead Ross down a dark path, destroying his life and the lives of those around him. I just wanted to change the world. Ross finished his master's in 2009 and was excited about life after college. He moved back to Austin to start his own business. However, the world of business had some wicked surprises waiting for Ross, and his first painful experience was just around the corner. Being an entrepreneur was tougher than Ross expected. During this time, he recorded his thoughts in a journal. First, Ross tried day trading, which is when you buy stocks at a low price and ideally sell them for a higher price on the same day. But day trading proved to be difficult, and Ross didn't have much money to invest. Eventually, Ross quit day trading and started his next business, a video game company. Unfortunately, that failed too. By this point, Ross was disappointed. He wrote in his journal, "I felt ashamed of where my life was. I left my promising career as a scientist to be an investment advisor and entrepreneur and came up empty-handed." Before Ross could drown in his sorrows, he found a new money-making opportunity right under his nose. Ross's downstairs neighbor invited him to join a business called Good Wagon Books. The business collected used books and sold them online for a profit. Ross joined the company and soon he was making good money. But Ross hadn't forgotten his college dream to free the world, and now he had a plan to do it. Ross's big idea was to create a website where people could buy anything anonymously with no trail whatsoever that could lead back to them.
Log into the site, browse or search for whatever services they want, and then anonymously pay for it through Bitcoins and have it sent to whatever location they want.
Ross learned to code and started building the website. To make sure the police couldn't trace the site back to him, Ross put the website on the dark web, which is a part of the internet that's made up of hidden sites you can't find through conventional web browsers.
Anything that you send through this internet is completely encrypted and nobody knows that it's you who sent it.
But there was an issue of payment. If customers paid with their credit cards, it could be traced back to them. So Ross made the site only accept Bitcoin as payment, so that all transactions were encrypted and hence untraceable.
You know, in cybercrime, you go after one, the IP address, and trace it through the network, or two, you go after the cache, and this one kind of blocked both.
Although he had to keep it a secret, Ross couldn't resist the urge to brag a little bit. So he went on his LinkedIn profile and wrote, "I'm creating an economic simulation to give people a first-hand experience of what it would be like to live in a world without the systemic use of force." After months of writing code, Ross was ready to launch. In early 2011, at 26 years old, he put the website online, calling it Silk Road. The name Silk Road comes from a historical route that allowed traders to move goods between Asia and Europe safely for over 1,500 years. Ross wrote in his journal, "I'm creating a year of prosperity and power beyond what I ever experienced before. Silk Road is going to become a phenomenon and at least one person will tell me about it unknowingly that I was its creator." But if Ross knew what was coming, he would have felt scared, not excited, because Silk Road was about to turn Ross's life into a chaotic mess, starting with one question. How in the world was he going to find criminals willing to sell their products on a secret website? Before we talk about Ross's interesting methods of promoting Silk Road, I want to thank this video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a vehicle combat MMO game featuring over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, from early 20th century biplanes and armored vehicles to modern fighter jets and tanks. The graphics are stunning and the sound effects are lifelike, which immerses you into the experience. The unique feature of War Thunder is its detailed damage model, where the vehicles are broken down into their individual parts, like the engine and fuel tank. When a vehicle is destroyed, the X-ray view reveals the exact impact point and the components where the vehicle was damaged. Personally, I've never seen anything like it. This game also has a variety of camouflage, historical markings, and decorations for you to customize your vehicles however you would like. You can even choose ones created by you guys, the community. So I use a gaming computer to create these videos, but games like Apex still lag for me. But War Thunder is optimized to run smoothly even on regular machines. Join the community of over 70 million players for some intense PvP battles. And for you military history enthusiasts, this game is made for you. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link in the pinned comment or description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months across all platforms get a massive bonus pack that includes the Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lines, and 7 days of premium account only for a limited time. The genius marketing strategy. Ross didn't know what to do, but needed to attract buyers and sellers fast without drawing attention to himself. Running digital ads was definitely not part of the plan. But then Ross came up with an idea so creative, it made him look like a marketing genius. Ross didn't want anyone to know he created Silk Road, so he decided to promote it as if he were a customer. Using the name Altoid, Ross made posts on internet forums pretending to be a regular guy who'd heard about Silk Road. He wrote, "I came across this website called Silk Road. It's a tourist hidden service that claims to allow you to buy and sell anything anonymously. I'm thinking of buying off it, but wanted to see if anyone here had heard of it and could recommend it. His plan worked, and people from these forums trooped to Silk Road to check it out. In the beginning, the only product on Silk Road was mushrooms Ross had grown himself. A few days later came the first sale, then more. Pretty soon, other vendors started listing their products on Silk Road too.
Bill, not his real name, is a vendor on Silk Road who posts to customers in Australia.
The products were organized under categories with sellers from more than 10 different countries.
And he says business is good.
Australian traffic is doubled, tripled, quadrupled. There's more vendors now, there's definitely more buyers.
Ross had a booming business, and it even got to the point where he began creating seller guides to ensure products were free from detection. Buyers could even give sellers a rating after receiving their items.
It was the first of its kind, and people sought it out. They realized that this was a new way to do basically like illegal e-commerce, essentially.
But before Ross could celebrate, he was hit with a bigger problem, one involving someone Ross deeply cared about, his girlfriend. Ross met Julia Vi when they started dating at Penn State University. She was a freshman, he was a grad student. They were so close that when Ross got his master's degree and moved back to Austin, Vi left school and moved to be with him. However, it started to fall apart when Ross told Julia about Silk Road. Julia hated the idea and was worried Ross could get arrested. But before they could solve the first issue, Silk Road caused another one. As he worked on Silk Road, he began spending more and more time in their bedroom on his computer practically 24/7. Julia said, "A lot of times I was just angry at him because I wanted to go out. I wanted to have fun, and he was like, 'Julia, that's a waste of time.'" Eventually, Julia couldn't take it anymore, so she broke up with Ross and moved out. Julia later said, "Probably one of the main reasons why we broke up was because I felt like he put this insane pressure on me to keep this insane secret." Ross was heartbroken, but he didn't have time to feel sorry for himself, because someone who knew about Silk Road was about to expose the secret website to the entire world. And doing that would put a target on Ross's back, turning from a nobody to one of the most wanted men in America. In June 2011, a blog called Gawker published an article about Silk Road that went viral. Suddenly, millions of new customers were visiting the site.
Hundreds of thousands of users use the impossible to trace website, which sells forged documents and even hitmen. It's called the Silk Road.
Ross wrote in his journal, "Silk Road got its first press," the infamous Gawker article. You can see right when it happened, a huge spike in signups.
Just look at some of the 13,000 items offered through that underground site.
But the publicity came with a downside. Silk Road was now on law enforcement's radar. Ross wrote in his journal, "The US government, my main enemy, was aware of me, and some of its members were calling for my destruction." Ross was feeling very anxious, but soon his anxiety turned into confidence, because Ross was about to meet someone who'd teach him everything he needed to be a real criminal. Ross was about to get his very own crime coach. Ross met a man called Variety Jones on the Silk Road website. Jones was older, more experienced, and became a mentor to Ross. Variety helped Ross improve Silk Road's security, boost sales, and grow the business. Ross wrote in his journal, "Variety Jones has helped me see a larger vision, a brand that people can come to trust and rally behind. And it's been amazing just talking to a guy who was so intelligent and in the same boat as me." By 2012, Ross officially hired Variety Jones as his coach, and sometimes paid Jones as much as $60,000 per session. But the most important thing Variety Jones did was help Ross create an alter ego. Jones suggested that Ross adopt the name Dread Pirate Roberts from a character in the Princess Bride movie.
In the movie The Princess Bride, nobody had ever seen the Dread Pirate Roberts. He was more fiction than fact, a phantom. It was the perfect moniker for an online lord.
Ross loved the concept, and soon he made his new name official.
February 5th, 2012, the Silk Road administrator made an announcement. Drumroll, please. My new name is Dread Pirate Roberts.
Thanks to his new alter ego, Ross felt like a different person when he was running Silk Road. However, becoming Dread Pirate Roberts pushed Ross deeper into the dark side. Now that the FBI, DEA, and other agencies were hunting him, Ross was more paranoid than ever, so he took extra security measures. For instance, when Ross hired remote workers to help him manage Silk Road, he demanded they scan their real driver's licenses or passports as a loyalty test. He also added strong strong encryption to his computer and applied for citizenship in countries that would hide him and his millions. But while Ross was being extra careful, some of his employees weren't. And soon, one Silk Road employee would mess up and it would make Ross so mad he crossed a line he would never cross before, turning to the dark side. Curtis Clark Green was a Silk Road employee who got himself in serious trouble. In January 2013, Curtis was arrested in a sting operation by the DEA. Two of the arresting agents were Carl Force and Sean Bridges, both Baltimore Silk Road Task Force members. The first agent, Carl Force, had signed up on Silk Road, posing as a seller named Knob. Using this undercover identity, Knob started chatting with Dread Pirate Roberts until they became friends. After Curtis Green was arrested, agents Force and Bridges pressured him to spill everything he knew about Silk Road, so he did. Green told them everything, including his employee login credentials. Green also mentioned that as a Silk Road employee, he had access to Bitcoin in the Silk Road system. But telling these agents about Silk Road Bitcoin was a big mistake, because Mark Force and Sean Bridges had something new in mind. They turned out to be corrupt cops. After the interrogation, one of the agents, Sean Bridges, secretly logged into Silk Road using Green's password. Then Bridges started sending huge amounts of Bitcoin from the Silk Road account to his own personal Bitcoin wallet.
The corrupt cop sets out to bust Ross, and then at a certain point he says, okay, I'm gonna rip this kid off instead. If I can't bust him, I'm gonna steal the money and I'm gonna use it for my own purposes.
Later that day, Ross realized Clark Green's account had stolen 20,000 Bitcoins, worth about $350,000 at the time. Ross didn't know that it was actually Agent Sean Bridges who stolen the money. Ross was furious, but he didn't know what to do, so he turned to his criminal coach, Variety Jones, for advice. They considered scaring Green into returning the stolen money, but Variety Jones wanted Green's punishment to be so severe it would make everyone scared to break the rules. Therefore, Variety Jones suggested the ultimate punishment, ending Green. Ross agreed and replied, "I would have no problem wasting this guy." Now, they needed a hitman, and by coincidence, Ross offered the contract to Knob, the same undercover DEA agent who had arrested Green, Carl Force. They agreed on $80,000 for the job. But Knob was a DEA agent. Was he actually going to carry out a hit? No, but he still wanted the money. So instead of actually ending Green, he would fake it. Knob made Green lie on the floor and splashed Campbell's Chicken and Stars soup on him as fake blood. Then he sent the photos to Ross as proof and received payment. This was the first time Ross tried to end a man's life, but it wouldn't be his last, as Ross allegedly continued sending hitmen after many more people who crossed him. And next on his list was a Silk Road seller who was trying to blackmail him. In March 2013, someone named Friendly Chemist tried to blackmail Ross. His demands were clear: pay $500,000 or he would leak the identities of thousands of Silk Road users. But instead of paying the blackmailer, Ross allegedly decided to pay a hitman. This time, Ross hired someone named Red and White and paid him $150,000 worth of Bitcoin for the job. A few days later, the hitman sent Ross photographic proof confirming that the blackmailer had been taken care of. Over time, Ross ordered hits on 4 more people who tried to steal from him. In just 2 years, Ross went from a young man trying to change the world to a kingpin deciding who lives.
I mean, I think it started off as sharing this idea, but then he really did turn to, like, I am the captain of this ship, and that's what goes, and he was making a lot of money.
But the biggest problem still remained. The cops were after him. Ross thought he covered his tracks, but there was one tiny error that led the cops right to him: the search for Dread Pirate Roberts. Silk Road was now the most sophisticated and extensive criminal marketplace on the internet, and folks who never thought about breaking the law now could with the click of a button thanks to Tor and Bitcoin technology. Meanwhile, Dread Pirate Roberts was enjoying his newfound fame and even took an interview with reporters. During the interview, Dread Pirate Roberts was certain that he was going to remain anonymous. He was so confident that he was never going to be found. However, he wouldn't have been so confident if he knew what the FBI had just found. It was a small discovery, but it had the power to blow the lid off the entire Silk Road operation. During the summer of 2013, FBI agents noticed a flaw in Silk Road's code. But this wasn't just any coding error. It was an error that leaked the IP address of the Silk Road server. The server was like a big computer that ran and recorded everything that happened on Silk Road. The FBI agents traced the Silk Road server to a data center in Iceland. Turning off the server would have taken Silk Road offline, at least temporarily, but instead of doing that, the FBI decided to to play the long game. They made a mirror image copy of the server. This meant the FBI could spy on Silk Road, allowing them to see everything: transactions, private messages, and even records of Dread Pirate Roberts' own activities. That's when they discovered that in just 2 years, Silk Road had processed 1.2 million transactions, generating roughly $1 billion in the process. The information on the server was valuable, but it did not reveal Dread Pirate Roberts' true identity. However, they did find one last thing that would turn out to be incredibly useful. The Silk Road server was run by a person with the username Frosty.
We had a computer that we knew the admin was logging into a computer called from a computer called Frosty. So you know when you set up your computer, you name it. Frosty was the main admin coming into Silk Road all the time.
But while the FBI was still trying to put the pieces together, someone else had already figured out who Dread Pirate Roberts truly was, and he solved the mystery with only 3 clicks on Google search. Gary Alford was an IRS investigator with a simple strategy. He wanted to find the first time Silk Road was mentioned online. He figured someone must have told other people about Silk Road before it got big, and that someone was probably Dread Pirate Roberts or someone close to him. So Gary entered Silk Road onto Google and discovered a post from January 2011 on a Bitcoin forum. The post was written by someone called Altoid, who described Silk Road as kind of an anonymous Amazon.com and gave steps on how to find the website. Altoid also made a similar post on shroomery.org. Remember, these were the posts Ross made in his marketing plan to grow the website. Gary made a note that Altoid was the first person to talk about Silk Road online. Next, Gary decided to check out some of Altoid's other posts. He found several, however, one from October 2011 stood out. In that post, Altoid was trying to recruit programmers to work in a Bitcoin startup company. This was interesting because Silk Road could be considered a Bitcoin startup. Although this was all good stuff, it was the last part of the post that blew Gary's mind. It said, if interested, please send your answers to the following questions to rossolbricht@gmail.com. Gary was looking at the name of a real person, Ross Ulbricht. However, Gary wanted more proof, so he browsed the web for more information about Ross Ulbricht. His search led him to Stack Overflow, a website where programmers ask coding questions. In March 2012, someone with the username Ross Ulbricht asked a coding question about Tor, the dark web browser that Silk Road was running on. First, Ross posted the question with his real name, and then less than 1 minute later, he changed his username from Ross Ulbricht to Frosty. Gary didn't realize how important the name Frosty was, but with his final discovery, Gary raced to the FBI to blow the whistle on Ross. In September 2023, Gary Alford contacted the FBI and explained why he thought Ross Ulbricht was Dread Pirate Roberts. The agents thought Gary's discoveries were interesting, but they weren't so sure that Ross, who used to be a kind Boy Scout, was a criminal mastermind. That was until Gary said Ross changed his username to Frosty on Stack Overflow.
I said, well, there's one other link I found. I found that Ross Ulbricht was linked to this avatar Frosty. The FBI agent starts coming in like, what was that? What is this Frosty?
Gary didn't know why the FBI agent was fixated on the name Frosty.
So I explained to him that's just the avatar he used. You know, I thought it was kind of strange he was asking this question, but then he says that is the name of the user that operates the site, Frosty.
The agents began to think Gary might be right. The FBI looked into Ross's life and found more proof that he might be Dread Pirate Roberts. They even found Ross's LinkedIn post where he announced, "I'm creating an economic simulation to give people a first-hand experience of what it would be like to live in a world without the systematic use of force." Even though the FBI believed Ross Ulbricht was Dread Pirate Roberts, they still needed solid proof. They needed to catch him red-handed with his fingers literally on the keyboard. They needed to do it fast before Ross discovered they were onto him and disappeared. Time's up. Within 10 days, the FBI got an arrest warrant for Ross. Then they headed to San Francisco, where Ross lived under the fake name Josh Terry. The clock was ticking and they still didn't have a plan to catch him red-handed. The FBI put surveillance on Ross to monitor his daily habits and movements. Of course, they needed to arrest him when he was logged in as Dread Pirate Robert so he wouldn't be able to claim innocence. Finally, the FBI came up with a plan, but it was risky because one mistake could allow Ross to lock, encrypt, or even smash his laptop, destroying the evidence they needed. On October 1st, 2013, plain-clothed FBI agents followed Ross into a public library.
It was a quiet day. There was quite a few users in there, but as it being a library, it was pretty quiet.
Ross sat in a corner and pulled out his laptop. He didn't realize many of the random folks at the library that day were undercover FBI agents.
There was a team of FBI agents that had put themselves in a place to be able to get the laptop and effect the arrest at the same time.
The agents wanted to make sure that Ross was logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts before the arrest, and they knew exactly how to make that happen. A few months earlier, the FBI had arrested a Silk Road employee named Cirrus and taken over their account. As a Silk Road employee, Cirrus had a direct line to Ross, so the agents used Cirrus's account to send Ross a message on Silk Road, tricking him into logging into the site. Cirrus asked Ross, "Can you check one of the flagged messages for me?" Ross replied, "Sure, let me log in." The agents watched Ross as he tapped on his keyboard, accessing Silk Road. A few seconds later, two undercover agents inside the library started to fake a fight to distract Ross. The fight was so loud that Ross turned his head to see what was happening. That was the opportunity the FBI needed. While Ross was staring at the fight, another agent came up from behind and grabbed Ross's laptop. From the corner of his eye, Ross saw his laptop being lifted and tried to grab it, but before his hands could reach the laptop, another agent came up from behind and bear hugged Ross tightly.
I think he initially thought he was being robbed of the computer, but then once identifications came out, he understood what was happening.
The FBI agents checked the laptop and heaved a sigh of relief. Ross was signed in to Silk Road. It was Dread Pirate Roberts' account. The laptop had a treasure trove of evidence, fake identities, chats, even Ross's personal journal. The FBI shut down Silk Road immediately. News of Ross's arrest spread like wildfire.
The FBI today shut down what it's calling the most sophisticated internet site in the business. The secretive Dread Pirate Roberts was arrested in the most unlikely of places, this local public library in this San Francisco neighborhood.
Ross was slapped with multiple charges, including money laundering, conspiracy, and engaging in continuing criminal enterprise. But Ross wasn't going down without a fight. He said he wasn't guilty, claiming he was framed. If the US government wanted Ross in jail, they would have to win a tough courtroom battle to put him there. Prison life awaits. The trial began in January 2015. Ross's lawyers claimed that he was being set up as the perfect fall guy for the true owners of the website.
His defense team claimed he created Silk Road as a harmless economic experiment, but gave it up after a few months and handed it over to other operators who later framed him.
Ross explained that the person who took over the site was the real Dread Pirate Roberts. He also denied making money from Silk Road or putting hits on 6 people. Ross was so confident in his defense that he turned down a plea deal.
He was offered a deal at a certain point and he turned it down because I think it was 10 years.
Ross's lawyers argued that people who run websites shouldn't be blamed for the bad things others do on their sites. They also accused the FBI of breaking the law to find the Silk Road server.
They have not said how they found the Silk Road server, what methods they used. This is required. And if you don't say how, then how do you even know the evidence wasn't fabricated?
Ross's lawyers made good arguments, but still there was a mountain of evidence against him. The prosecution presented everything they found on Ross's laptop, including his journal, which referred to his actions running the site. They also showed more than $13 million in direct transactions from the Silk Road to Ulbricht's wallet, proving Ross did profit from Silk Road. But surprisingly, the prosecution couldn't find any evidence that the hits Ross had ordered were actually carried out, so they couldn't charge him for that. But that doesn't mean Ross didn't put lives in danger. The prosecutors talked about 6 Silk Road customers whose lives have ended because of the substances they bought from the site. The parents of these victims showed up to testify against Ross. On February 5th, 2015, Ross was found guilty on all 7 charges against him. All that remained was for the judge to decide how long Ross would spend behind bars. But instead of giving up, Ross tried to make the judge feel sorry for him. Before his sentencing, Ross wrote a letter to the judge begging for mercy. He wrote, "I understand what a terrible mistake I made. I had my youth, and I know you must take away my middle years, but please leave me my old age. Please leave a small light at the end of the tunnel, an excuse to stay healthy, an excuse to dream for better days ahead, and a chance to redeem myself in the free world before I meet my maker." But his plea fell on deaf ears because his sentence was more severe than anyone expected. The judge told Ross, "What you did in connection with Silk Road was terribly destructive to our social fabric," and then sentenced him to double life imprisonment plus 40 years without the possibility of parole. Ross wanted to change the world. His journey began as a good kid, and then he made one bad decision after another, eventually becoming something that no one could have ever imagined. My friends, the seemingly small choices that you make every day will either destroy your life or make the world a better place. So choose wisely. Visual Venture. Thanks a ton to War Thunder. Play it for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months across all platforms will get a massive bonus pack. Wait, before you go, make sure you guys click subscribe here and then click this playlist to watch more dark internet documentaries, because our goal is 700,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Thank you guys for everything. Peace.